All right. So, hi everyone, welcome. I think people will start to trickle in as we get started. My name is Dale Corvino. I am a Lambda Lit Fellow. I have the honor and privilege and pressure of judging the Lambda Literary Award category is Gay Memoir Memoir and Biography. And we had a lot of amazing titles come in this year. Among them, this one right here, Be Not Afraid of My Body, by Darius Stewart, who's here with us today. And we're going to have a discussion about his book, which uh, I see folks are coming in. Welcome, which I absolutely loved. And yeah, welcome, Darius.
Thank you, Dale. Glad to be here.
I don't know how you are. Like when I read books, I obsess, and even when I'm writing books, I obsess over the opening, like the
Uh,
first sentence. Are you
yes.
like that?
Yes.
So I'm gonna read. I want to read your opening, and let's get into it.
All right.
Just the first part first. Imagine you are a young black boy in Knoxville, Tennessee. So you open the book with this. It's a very direct call. Like is it a, would you call it an invitation, a plea, a challenge to the reader?
Ugh. All of the above. No, it's interesting because for that to be the opening, it's I wrote it for the essay itself, but then the essay had to be the first thing as well. So there's a lot of
Hmm.
layers to like how I want um the reader to come to this book. And it is, I want to kind of draw them into this world that is not going to be a very conventionally, explored world, narratively speaking.
Mm-mm.
And so I'm inviting the reader to imagine, this narrator at this particular moment in the narrator's life. And in some way, I may have been thinking about a particular audience, um, which since I've been doing readings from the book, I've learned that I don't know if I have a particular audience anymore because people who I would never imagine to be a target audience are connecting with the work in ways that I necessarily intend. But of course,
Sure.
it's out of my hands once it's in the hands of the reader, right? So yeah, so basically, long winded answer. It's like all of the above. To let you.
Yes. I mean, I definitely took it as that. I thought, okay, it's setting a time, which is like childhood or adolescence, and it's setting the place, Knoxville, which I'm not super familiar with. Like as a New Yorker, I've been to Maryville once for a factory tour. I was impressed with the degree of separation that was presented to me. It was for me, it was very like uncomfortable.
Mhm.
And I've been to Nashville for like a trade show, so I'm not super familiar with your part of the world. Um, but certainly, the promise of adolescence, which I'm going to read the rest of the sentence, which takes a bit of a turn. Imagine you are a young black boy in Knoxville, Tennessee, say 14 years old, who doesn't know what a stalker looks like until a fat old white man with rosacea and gray white hair spies on you from his tan sedan. So now we have another sense of time, like stalking time, right?
Yeah.
And now we have like a bit of a palette, but it's like, it's still quite stark. You have like the red of the stalker's rosacea, his gray white hair, a tan sedan. You have this kind of like, it's quite stark. It opens with the promise of adolescence, but also menace.
Hmm.
So I was really impressed with that
Yeah. Thank you.
as an opening gambit.
Yeah. I mean, you got to hook the reader. I have ADHD, so it takes very little for me to be like, nope, next. Like I have to be hooked. And one way that I realized I could do that was to open with this very unexpected, moment in this narrator's life. Not thinking, when you have the title "Be Not Afraid of My Body," and then the first thing is a predation of this body, that
Yes.
is fearful. So what,
Yes.
and in a sense, this predator is suggesting that the narrator not be afraid of his body, or at least internalize that psychological manifestation of whatever the stalker has in mind for this young.
Yeah. Yeah. I like I had made the connection with the title, but I think it absolutely tracks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
I didn't realize
be afraid.
that until
Yeah.
I finished the book. Like, which body is the body? Being referenced at certain
Right.
times.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's I, that's part of what happens when we put these books out into the world is like the I think sometimes our intentions come back to us
Yeah,
and they get reflected back to us from the readers.
yeah.
That's really quite beautiful. So that was the opening sentence to an essay that you incorporated into the book. Was that always the opening sentence to the book? Had you like thought about different openings?
Sure I did. Sure I did.
If you care to talk about this,
Yeah, I
this is
mean,
like,
like, how long have I been writing this book? I mean, it's been years, and I forget
yeah,
like when I wrote this particular piece. But if I can remember correctly, I didn't start with the Imagine. It was one of those, I guess the analog I tell people is like, sometimes I have to imagine I'm on like a dock that's overlooking like a lake, and I just take a running start and leap into the air and do whatever. And however I land in the water is how I land in the water. But you have to make this leap. And so imagine you're this, that was my leap. Like, just do something. Like, what is it that you want the reader to connect with? And so to answer that question, it's like, I want them to imagine this. I said, oh, there you go.
yeah, that's quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, so that was from Get Ghost, where you described the stalking and that kind of predatory figure in your adolescence, and then reading forward in the chapter called Miscreant Joy, you index change in Knoxville, right, your hometown. To quote from Miscreant Joy, iron gates erected like prison bars around the neighborhood, gates meant to narrow escape routes, to cut black boys off at the pass so cops could chase them down into chokeholds. I mean, I found that very poignant because that it's an observation of the criminalization of black youth in American cities, but it's also from your point of view where you have desires for those criminalized bodies,
Is that from
right? So
Picaresque? You said Miscreant Joy. Was that from Picaresque?
I could be I could be out of I thought it was from Miscreant Joy.
Yeah, I think it's from Picaresque.
Sorry.
No, 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 no. Because
But
I
what
use the term Miscreant Joy, like, and that's the title of an essay, but it's also,
right.
it appears in another, that term appears in another essay too.
Ah yes, you use it again in
Yeah.
another essay. Yeah.
But
Well,
anyway,
I
to your question,
yeah. Well, I guess the question is like that's a change you indexed growing up in Knoxville.
yeah.
Now I understand you're in Iowa. Do you go back home and have you indexed more changes to your hometown?
You know what? I am terrible. I feel like I'm terrible about writing about place. And so that was really challenging to even have that you read it be something that I could focus on and remember and render on the page. But typically, no, I don't. And it's so different anyway. Like that. So that was the Lonsdale projects that I'm describing there, and it's
Mm,
nothing like that now. It,
mm,
it is not anything. There are no prison bars. It doesn't look like a projects anymore. But And that's something. It's an interesting kind of gentrification that is
Mm,
still for Section 8, and people who are on Section 8.
yeah,
And it's a very interesting kind of tension, I feel like, that's happening with these changes. And I don't go home often enough. I don't necessarily know if that's because I just don't want to go back home, but certainly it's not because there's more to mine in a sense.
right.
Although the book that I'm working on now, which is also my dissertation, is Knoxville features a lot because it's about a relationship.
Mm,
Um, but I don't necessarily do the reference locations or places in the same way. I just
yeah, understood.
when it comes to like how to describe a place, that's when I kind of go into like speculative mode because I get lazy about the details of a place. So I just imagine it the way wherever I am in the moment. Like, what is the point that I'm trying to make about the place?
Right.
And that to me feels like the better impulse to follow than to say, let me recreate something from my past.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the way, going back to the opening sentence where you're introducing the character, the protagonist at 14, and that's kind of the way when I was 14, that's the way I understood where I was. It was like
Yeah,
immediate and tactile, and how does this and physical rather than, oh, I'm in this, suburb off the coast of so and so, and
yeah,
it's no like a geographical description or a localized description.
yeah, absolutely.
I also see that you um, have bites from Essex Hempel, the poet Essex Hempel, that open quite a few of the chapters. I was always so moved by writers like Hempel and Asoto Saint who
Yeah,
wrote with that timeline, very aware of their timeline. It's
yeah,
very poignant.
yeah.
And I especially love the poem you cite. I believe the poem's called To Larry. And this one particular line always hits me. Our lives tremble between pathos and seduction.
Hmm.
And to me, I can take those 7 words from the context of Hempel's life and poetry and the context of this book where I encountered it
Yeah,
and say those are like 7 sharp words that encapsulate the queer condition,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So the book indexes experiences of homophobia and addiction and HIV stigma. And I was reading it and I was trying to like locate it in a generational context. Like I'm, I guess I'm Gen X. I guess you're
I'm
late
at,
Gen X or
yeah, I'm
early.
at the tail end of Gen X.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like if there was a queer generational scope, it would be generation like the generation that understood or that had the understanding of HIV as undetectable, right? Because of the medications.
right, right.
The generation that got marriage equality, the generation that saw more representation in culture than, say, my generation,
Yeah,
like going back a little bit.
yeah, yeah,
And despite all those changes, like that we can index, like, oh, we have HIV, is treatable and undetectable. We have more representation. More of us have more representation. Um, we have marriage equality. Despite all that progress, there's still perils.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's what I that was the biggest takeaway for me from your book.
yeah.
Like none of those representation, medication, uh marriage, none of those are necessarily going to save us from certain perils.
No, absolutely not. And especially because, as I frame it in the book, a lot of it's because of the racialization of you know those who are experiencing those things. I was so I write about in Skin Hunger. I write about going back on the dating apps and talking about being undetectable, like being forthcoming about that, being a safer choice because you know what you're getting. But then reading this just vitriolic commentary on people who are HIV positive, and who are just damning those, like stop trying to normalize HIV. They're responding to other people, right? But it was just disheartening because, like, when I read it, it's like we are well into the 21st century and people are still just nasty about.
Yeah. I mean, the HIV stigma is intense. As somebody who's been in discordant relationships for most of my adult life, I find it astounding. And especially when you talk about apps, like people people cut to the chase on those apps
Yeah,
sometimes, right?
yeah,
Whether it's racialization, whether it's like racialized, uh, language, or the language around HIV stigma.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. And it's also interesting too, like I was deliberately, the reason why to go back to, like, say, XXN, because the reason why he appears, there's 6 sections and he's the epigraph for each of the 6 sections. So it's
Hmm.
the poem. That was a framing device that my editor and I came up with to kind of cohere the book. So it doesn't read like just a loose collection of essays, but actually a lyrical memoir. And so a lot of associative logic is involved in that. And so there's a moment in another essay where this narrator finds himself sitting next to a guy who was HIV positive, and he is like petrified, you know. Um, and then you get in Skin Hunger later the same kind of responses to his body by proxy, I suppose. But I wanted to have those juxtapositions to show how, this narrator is always searching for some kind of understanding of who he is and how he became the person who developed HIV, who was an addict, who were all these different things, all engaged or were subjected to all these perils. And so it was important to, if it wasn't explicitly stated, that a reader could hopefully find those connections associatively and see, you know, how there's a kind of self-incrimination
Mm,
in the
mm.
moment, like in Skin Hunger, when he's listing all of these vitriolic comments, and he even goes on to say things about white gay men, which the original sentence I had to revise. I said, if I leave this as it is, white gay men are going to come for me. So like I had to like tone it down.
Yeah.
but but anyway, it's just interesting though, like how whiteness figures into this book. It begins with a white man who is a
Predatory.
right, but then it ends with the speaker kind of longing for a white man.
Right.
So, and then in between, there's all this, like how whiteness has been working for and against, not just the narrator's experience, but a racialized experience in general, So,
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the nature of longing, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
sometimes something that's like very taboo, or like I don't want to talk about this or think about this. Like even the predator, even those old white men who stalked you and other young black boys in your neighborhood, right?
yeah,
They had they were asserting their racial privilege, but they were also longing for black and brown bodies,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. And speaking of,
And
I'm sorry, there's an Easter egg of sorts in that first essay. The experience that,
oh, hit it, tell us.
yeah, so the experience that the narrator talks about with this, it might be a man named George
Uh-huh.
who, has sex with the young boy on the pallet. That's from Essex Pill.
Mm, mm.
That's from his essay. What's the name of it? Lord, I can't remember. I'm blanking, but yeah, I use that moment. That's why it's framed the way it is. Like maybe
Right.
because I'm alluding to Exit Hill's experience, um,
Yes.
into the kind
He
of
also
yeah,
yeah, he explored those issues of race and
yeah,
intimacy
yeah,
as well.
absolutely,
Beautiful. Yeah. I also want to ask about the title, and I looked for the Whitman poem
yeah,
that it comes from. As Adam, early in the morning,
yeah,
walking forth from the bower, refreshed with sleep, behold me where I pass, hear my voice approach, touch me, touch the palm of your hand to my body as I pass. Be not afraid of my body. And I was just like, this is this is the first man as like trade.
yeah,
Like it's so it's so hot. It's
yeah.
fucking hot.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
And I love the title. I love the title just as a phrase,
yeah.
right? But then when I start to dig into your book with that title, I think like, and I think about like, you know, the issues around HIV stigma, the issues around race, this kind of like racialized desire. Like it's I suspect it's not just to talk about an undetectable body with HIV. It's
Hmm.
also like our own fear, and you alluded to this earlier. It's our own fear of intimacy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Which gets us, we as gay men have to work through.
yeah, yeah. And this,
Many of us,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And the title of the book was not intended to be Not Afraid of My Body. It was Call Me When You Get This. Um, but some folks didn't like that title. It felt like it wasn't really encapsulating the lyricality of the book. And actually, the last Skin Hunger was initially Be Not Afraid of My Body. Um, but once I changed the title of the book to Be Not Afraid of My Body, I had to change the title of that essay because it wasn't meant to be a title essay, you know.
Right.
But I was, but I like using Whitman because I took a Whitman seminar with Ed Folsom, who was like one of the leading scholars in Whitman studies, uh, who just retired recently from Iowa. But I took his seminar and I wrote like this lyric essay about this notion of HIV positivity and his notion of like the democratic body. Like each atom is good, belonging to you is good, belongs to me, or something along those lines. Like
Mm,
in the 19th century, it has this context, but in the 20th century, in the context of AIDS and HIV, it means something completely different. You know,
interesting.
for him, in the 19th century, it's celebratory, but in our
Yes.
context of HIV and AIDS, it's deadly. It could be lethal if you're sharing
Yeah.
these atoms. So I wanted to get that tension in there as well.
Yeah. I've been through that same process where like a book title, I guess it was the other way. I had a book title that became a title of one of the chapters
Yeah,
and then a new title.
yeah,
One of the chapters in my memoir is Color Me Your Color Baby,
yeah.
which is the uh opening lyric from Blondie's Call Me.
Hmm.
And it was originally going to be the title of the book, but I wound up making it the title of the last chapter.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to make those choices.
You got to make those choices. You made some choices.
I did. Well, actually, someone just
um
made it for me, but I'll just leave it at that.
You
The
know,
way I came up with,
but but sometimes that you need to hear somebody else
yeah,
talk about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I also love the section. There aren't many sections, but there are a couple choice sections where the character, the protagonist is um being like in with your friends, like your close circle,
Hmm.
and you're getting into like things that only close friends could talk about. So like in the section Omar, right?
Hmm.
They're giving wisdom. They're giving like gay wisdom
Yeah,
about the trade,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Be suspicious of boys too slim in build, or who coughed without end, or who reveal track marks.
Hmm.
First of all, I want to say I've definitely been there.
Yeah,
or when they or when they talk you through how to figure out if the trade is too hot,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I loved I love those brief glimpses at that kind of like those kind of friendships where you could literally talk about anything.
Hmm.
And like uh I've I'm older Gen X,
Yeah,
and I've lost a lot of my circle of friends over the years, whether it's to addiction or just life struggles. And I don't really have those kind of real intimates now in my life where you could talk about anything.
yeah.
Do you have like a circle like that that sticks with you? Do you have a new circle?
I am circleless, really. It's interesting. I'm like, what happened? I think honestly, like once I got sober,
Yeah.
um, I became a lot more introverted. Um, and so because I used to be in touch, I realized that I was always in touch with people because I was drunk dialing people all the damn time. So,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
um, but once I got sober, it was like I just started feeling like I needed to work on me.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and I mean, I've been kind of going on that path ever since. This was 10 years ago when I got sober. It'll be 10 years,
Mm.
25th of this month. And so, one of my best friends, who was Jerome in the book, he died.
Mm.
And that should not have happened. Absolutely.
Right.
Um, and I just wonder, like, why didn't I know what was going on with him? He was my best friend, but it just went to the heart of like how I was changing. And part of being in recovery is some of the things from your past has to go. And sometimes
Yeah.
those are friends. Um,
Yeah. People's places and
yeah,
things, right?
and he
Yeah.
wasn't one of those. He's actually going to be, like I say in the book, like one of the first people I called to talk to him about it.
Mm.
And before I could do that, it was just the timing. Like I get diagnosed with HIV and congestive heart failure, and then my brother calls to tell me that he's died. You
Yeah.
know, and so
Yeah.
it was weird. So I don't necessarily have a circle. I kind of need one, I think. And
Same.
yeah, so I
But then the
I
reader,
have Gizmo.
oh,
Yeah,
Gizmo's adorable.
yeah. He shouldn't say that.
But then the reader does become a certain kind of circle, right?
Yeah,
Like when
yeah,
you get,
yeah,
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 which I do start to feel sometimes when I'm like, when I really like, maybe after a reading or like a book signing where somebody comes up to you and says, this thing that you said right here
yeah,
really touched me. It's like, oh, I am able to, plus COVID, you talked about COVID earlier.
yeah,
It kind of atomized our social worlds, at least for me.
yeah,
So yeah. On addiction, I've been in recovery for more than 20 years. So I definitely related to the
yeah,
recovery aspect of the story, but also I apprecited that it wasn't central to the narrative,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's like, to me, it's on the spectrum of that. What was that quote? Between pathos and seduction,
yeah,
right?
yes, yes, yes.
And I just want to read some of these because to me, they're so beautiful. This is part of your account of the DTs, right?
Hmm.
A forewarning quake, even the animals sense, and hence the stampede. A body's betrayal, enlisting a mind not intact. Marionettes with severed limbs. Yeah, I mean, I just really appreciated that you wrote this kind of lyrical memoir and told your addiction and recovery story without it necessarily being it's not a qualification.
Yeah,
It is,
yeah,
it includes
yes.
but it encaps it contextualizes what your individual struggle with addiction and recovery and health issues that came from it within the context of exploring and looking for, you know, looking to understand who you are as a person in this world.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. There's so many, memoirs in this memoir. And it wasn't about that. It wasn't about an addiction or, illness.
Yeah.
It was about, if the memoir is supposed to be, a record of a moment in a person's life, it still needs to have this kernel of like aboutness. Like, so what?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
why are you telling us this? What are we supposed to know about the narrator? And so for me, it was my way of writing into who I am, as opposed to me telling people like, oh, these things happened to me, and I
Right.
that resonates more if it's, which is tricky because sometimes that kind of self-reflexive kind of writing can become like diaristic in a way that belongs in your diary journal for your eyes only, because
Yes.
there's not a lot of art and craft, involved. So this was I had to balance, a kind of private interiority with the obvious, public consumption that this is going to, into.
Yeah. Yeah, we all have to try and get the insides and the outsides right,
Yeah,
right? That's how I think about it. Like, are the insides right or the outsides right?
yeah,
And yes, I agree with you. I never felt like I was reading that kind of like what you call diaristic,
yeah,
or like sometimes I think of it as solipsistic, where
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
really
yeah,
for
yeah,
yourself.
yeah,
I don't think this is for yourself.
yeah,
I don't think this book is for you. I think this book is for us.
yeah,
And I always felt that way. Even when you were getting into the details of like congestive heart failure brought on by addiction, like that's also like our bodies tell us things, right? Like when I was in the throes of my addiction, like smoking a lot and doing a lot of drugs, I went up I went up a flight of stairs in the subway station and caught and tried to catch my breath, and I couldn't.
yeah,
I couldn't breathe. I had walking pneumonia,
yeah,
and I was like, this is my body telling me
yeah,
something. I cannot breathe under these
yeah,
circumstances that I'm imposing on myself.
yeah.
And with you, it's like my heart will not take this
It
anymore.
would. I mean, and I don't understand what it is. Like, I was leaning against the wall, standing up with a pillow against the wall, trying to sleep because I couldn't lie down flat because I felt like I was drowning. That's because there was fluid in my lungs,
Right.
and you know that's the point where I was like, okay, this isn't right. So let's go to the hospital. But it could have ended differently,
Yes. Yes.
because
Thankfully it didn't.
it was pretty bad.
Yeah. Thankfully it didn't. So I wanted to check in with you about your experiencing publishing with Belt.
Yeah,
I understand they're like a kind of regional imprint,
yeah,
but
yeah.
tell me about that. I'm curious to see how you landed there and
Well, after I got, interestingly enough, my agent, sent my manuscript out to, the commercial, publishers, and they all passed, but they had wonderful things to say in their rejections. And
yeah.
some of them were like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was picked up right now. And it's like, you could pick this up right now, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we pivoted to indie presses, and of course his job is to find these. It's not mine, so he finds the places. Some of them that I don't know, and Belt was one of them. And they and another press put in an offer, and so
Hmm.
I I talked with folks from both. And I didn't talk with Ann Trubeck, who was the publisher of Belt, but I spoke with Michael Jalkin, who was at the time one of the senior editors, and he was an editor that I ended up working with. But he had a plan. He knows exactly what he's doing. He gave me just enough of an idea for how he would envision, editing the book in a way that would entice me, but not give me so much so that if I were to decline, I could take those ideas, with me.
Yeah,
Um,
understood.
But
He gave you just enough.
he gave me just enough, and he really spoke to, without me having to tell him what my concerns were for revising the book and editing the book. He was able to hit on things that I knew I needed to work on without me having to tell him, and that's what really sold me. It was a grueling process at times. He actually wanted another essay. That at the time I was like, no, this is not going to happen. It was during the worst semester that I've had. I couldn't. But other than that, it was great.
Good.
Wonderful work.
Yeah. Is it I'm not super familiar with their whole body of like what they publish. Is it like a queer title among
Oh,
others, or is it like their foray into queer work?
they mostly, it's belt because it's the breast belt, I believe, like the Midwest
Hmm.
authors. And I don't know if my agent told me this, or I heard that they, when they chose to publish my book, that they were wanting to kind of branch out a little bit. Because, yeah, I was in Iowa, but my book is set in the South.
Right.
So it's not really about the Midwest. So they are queer titles that they publish. I'm not sure like
Yeah.
what the schedule is or how they, I do know that, they're accepting manuscripts at the moment. Um,
Mm.
uh,
Yeah, I was asking because I had a somewhat similar experience where my memoir was published by a small press that doesn't really have a body of queer work
yeah.
in their roster. So I felt a little bit wary about it, but also they were so behind it. I felt like, yeah,
Sometimes you got to be the first. Somebody's got to be, you know.
somebody's got to be the first.
Yeah,
I like,
yeah. That's why it's important that people realize that. Like you want to go to a place where something has already been established because you
yeah,
feel comfortable about what's going to happen with your own work. When the way I work, it's like, what are the larger issues that I am looking to resolve in terms of getting my work out into the world? And most of the time, it isn't about the identity politics or whatever. It's about the aesthetics.
sure.
So, like, how are you going to help me aesthetically? And so I look to like the titles whose writers and I have a similar kind of aesthetic.
Right. So you felt some connection to the roster of work that they had already
No,
published, or
I
like
can't say that.
their
I had no idea. I did not do the research. Titles,
maybe their approach to your book.
it was the approach to my book. That's what mattered. It
Yeah.
was like, how can
Yeah.
you help me with my book? Because it's
Yeah.
that the book that you've published already. That's none of my business. Like what went down with those books. Now, I know a lot of people do want to read the roster just to see like how it's been edited and things of that nature. But I feel like having the conversation with the editor themselves, I should accomplish, the same goal. Because sometimes there's only so much you can do with a book, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you get it in the best shape that you can. And sometimes it is
Uh-huh.
about the content versus, the aesthetic, or the mechanics or whatever of the book.
Yeah. What of all the what this book has been out in the world like a year? Is it a year?
Yeah, it was February 6th, I think, of 2024.
So a year and a half.
Yeah.
So like of all the like what's been the most surprising response? I think you alluded to something where you said it's reaching readers that you didn't expect it to reach.
Oh, just well, I think one of the most surprising. I did a reading for a festival, and there was a student who came up afterwards to talk to me privately because she didn't want to ask a question. The question she didn't want to ask it in front of everyone, but she wanted to know. It was from the essay "Love Like in the Movies," and she wanted, and it's about suicidal ideation, and she wanted to know,
Mm,
like, who, how did you become the person who would, want to commit suicide, but then you're, how you end up the way you are now. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that wasn't me. Not even the narrator, as a matter of fact. It was I was talking about somebody else, and I thought that was clear. So it made me think about, like, did I? Because I do a lot of speculative things, and signposting. This perhapsing that
mm,
talks about.
mm.
And so I was like, it says perhaps all the time. So that's should be, So I was surprised about how this reader misread this moment. Um,
Sure.
and not necessarily because it was something necessarily faulty, but she was engaging with this text.
Yes, she was.
You know,
And it wasn't spelled out as your experience, but it's kind of adjacent to your
yes,
experience.
exactly.
Because I think if we're in addiction, I mean, that that was the conclusion I came. Like, I could not live in my body because of what I'd been through. So I was trying to annihilate myself with
Yeah,
my addiction.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like I wasn't suicidal,
Right.
but I was adjacent.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think that could have been what informed, the student.
Her
Yeah, her reading.
her reading. Yeah. All right. Let's let's close with something less heavy.
Yeah.
Who would you cast in a film adaptation of Be Not Afraid of My Body?
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Uh,
Or if not the casting the protagonist, like what director, what directorial approach would you take to seeing this on film?
I think, oh gosh, I'm trying to think, like, who would I like to see? I like to see, like, what Jordan Peele would do
Oh,
with
interesting.
this. Because I feel like he has a way, because it's not a horror, a
Right.
horror story, but it is a horrific, kind of set of circumstances that I feel like I would like to see how he could finesse the horror genre, like really mute it, in a
Yeah,
really,
and there is some body horror that can come
yeah,
out of your talent.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that answer. I did not think that, and I
I
absolutely
wasn't
love
either, but that was,
thinking about how he might adapt it. Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. That's so cool.
And we're the same
Um,
age, so
what's that? Oh,
yeah,
you're the
we're the
same
same
age as
age.
Jordan
Yeah,
Peele.
I believe, yeah,
Yeah. Relatable content.
yeah, yeah.
So you mentioned a
Well, Barry
current
Jenkins. I
project.
was
Is
gonna say
this
Barry Jenkins too. Barry Jenkins
Oh,
would be
interesting.
another
It's very different direction,
very, very
right?
different direction, but
It would
I
be much
think,
more like I think it would be much more emotional.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
But I
he
kind
would
of love
probably land on what the book is trying to do, because I think he's a lazy
yeah.
kind of direct, like with Moonlight and everything. I feel like,
Oh God, Moonlight. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, Moonlight was my first like Moonlight Jenkins was my first thought, but then also like I love that you said Jordan Peele.
yeah, yeah. No, but that was.
So you mentioned quick I think you briefly mentioned a current project. Is there anything you want to talk about?
I will say it's called Speculative Romance, a critical memoir. So I'm like
Oh,
fusing. It's very hybrid. It's four different genres: speculative, romance, critical, and of course the memoir. About infidelity, being cheated.
interesting.
Yeah, and like the emotional trauma um, that comes from that, but also thinking about why do people cheat? What drives our, most carnal impulses. And it's also a way to kind of subvert like the, Pamela Regis's 8 elements of the romance novel that,
Mm,
ends with this betrothal or happily ever after, and how, you know, how that works in relationships where betrayal is so central to the
mm,
relationship. Um,
mm.
so yeah, I will say that about. I just finished
In it,
yesterday the final or a draft of the final section.
and this is in a queer context.
Oh,
I mean, gay.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't write about
I
straight
have my.
people. You know, this
They
is
got.
about a
They
straight
got.
person too.
They got
They
plenty.
got
They got
plenty.
plenty.
Yeah, it is not. It is not a heteronormative framing. But
Right. That's always been my take on like cheating and infidelity. That's like a heteronormative construct. But
yeah,
then again, I know people have their feelings about like
yeah,
I sometimes feel like some of us are built to operate in a territory and some of us are nesters, like
yeah,
just to settle down with one other person.
yeah. I know
I
Whitman
have to
makes another appearance in this. Tennyson does. The Golden Girls. Uh,
hey, I'm on board.
yeah.
I'm completely on board.
Yes.
Well, I think we're wrapping up, but it's
Yeah.
been a real pleasure talking to you
Yes.
remotely like this and learning more about this book that I was really moved by upon first reading and happy to dig into a second time for this.
Yes.
So I really appreciate you coming out and doing this for us.
No, thank you. And
And congratulations on the short list. I know the book
thank
has won other awards as well. Yeah.
yeah, but or it was nominated for one other, the Stonewall. It was an honoree
Hey,
for that. Yeah.
hey, hey.
No, no, I take it.
It's
I know I take it.
it's
It's
I yeah,
like
yeah.
a Lammy nominee and a honoree for Stonewall. I mean, that's the two big ones for queer writing. So I'm
Yes.
absolutely thrilled just to have.
Well, congratulations again. Congratulations on the book. Best of luck to you on your future project.
Thank you,
And
Dale.
thank you so much for speaking with us.
Yes, thank you all. See you all in a few hours, I guess.
Yes. See you for the show.
Yes. All right. Bye bye.
All right.